as softball players of color, and there are many of us. I mean, we're still the minority, but how can we spread love? How can we educate? How can we advocate for change? How can we make change? And this brings me back to the conversation I had with Kiki on FaceTime earlier. She was actually telling me a message that she got from a younger player, who is in the organization that you played for, the Corona Angels. Can you
Mm.
mind like sharing what she messaged you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brief intermission.
You got it. You got it, or you want me to get it?
You can just say the kind of gist of it about how this young girl just came to you and asked you what the softball community is doing.
Right. So she pretty much just reached out, and she is biracial. So that was kind of the first thing, but it was also that she was just very passionate about just bringing justice for her fellow African Americans, and she was like, am I naive to think that like the softball community is doing a lot? Because I feel like there's a lot of things that we come together in the softball community about, a lot of just different things, different families, coaches, we're always willing to support. But the fact that, she was like, am I, crazy to think that the softball world's not even talking about it? And I was like, you're right. Like, I really haven't heard anybody. I mean, the NFCA was the first thing that I saw, and that was yesterday that they had posted something. But I'm like, there's so many ways that the softball community comes together, and it has been kind of quiet. And our sport is predominantly white, but there are a lot of, you know, young Black girls that are coming up in the game. And I told Lily this earlier. When I started playing, Natasha Wiley, she was all I knew. There was no other, Black people that were doing it and were doing it like her. So then as I'm coming up in the game, the more I started coming up, I didn't really start seeing a ton of Black girls. I mean, I live in the Midwest. So during travel ball, didn't really see it a ton unless we were, out in Georgia on the East Coast, or we were out in California. But then in college, I was like, okay, there's, it's starting to get a little bit more. And as I've continued to play, it's just like I look back and I'm like, there is girls that look just like me that are coming up, but they sometimes feel alone, because it's like they're not getting, the same attention that one of their
Mm.
white counterparts are getting. And that is, I mean, very, very blatantly true. I think it's like, even in college, I know that there were so many just minorities in general. It didn't have to even be Black girls that were playing the game, and they were doing it the right way, and didn't get the coverage that their white counterparts are getting. And for, I don't know if it is an aesthetic thing. I don't know if it is just, how we want to cover things. But there's always been in my head, there's always been a look. And there's always
Mm-hmm.
been a look of, you've got to have A, B, and C to be able to be here. And that's kind of where I've never really understood it. You even look at the top of our game when it comes to coaching. Very few Black female coaches. Now there are, we are present, but again, you look at the top. You look at and I don't want to sound, this isn't going to be bad, but I don't want to have to coach at an HBCU just to say that I'm a Black head coach. I want to coach at a Power Five. I want to be a head coach at one of these Power Fives. I shouldn't have to just derail and go the HBCU route, because that's the type of crowd that I can impact.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know that I've impacted white, Black, Mexican. It could be anything. I've impacted a ton of, kids during my tenure of being able to play softball. So to say that that's like our stopping point, sometimes that's how it feels, is like that's my only option. And until we figure out how to understand and listen to, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, you know, coaches that don't even understand that, like, it's hard for a Black coach to just earn the respect of his or her counterparts. And so until we get to that point, it's going to look a little bit different for the ones that are coming up in the game. Like I said, I mean, this is a little girl that I have no clue. I don't even know her. And she's asking me, am I wrong for thinking that no one is paying attention to this?
What did you tell her? Sorry, I'm curious.
I hadn't even gotten to reply yet. She literally had just sent me this yesterday, and I'm like,
what would you say to her?
What would I say to her? I would say no. I would say she's not wrong for thinking that, because I do think that there is so many ways to talk about this. Like it is a very, very hard conversation. But when we find ways to, prime example, young girl, her dad passed away in the softball community. I'm just seeing stuff on Twitter, and you know, they started a GoFundMe for him, and all of a sudden it ended up hitting universities, big universities, saying, you know, we want to support this. This is our softball family. So when it comes to something like this, I don't know what things that we could do. Even my head, but what are we doing? What is the softball world doing right now? You know?
Tell you from my experience just this morning, you know, and this is hard.
Yeah.
I asked the people in power on my team to issue a statement, and if they're going to, and the answer is no. And and I had a heated conversation about this too. And it's not only about the fact that you're writing a couple words in a box and posting on Instagram. It's for me to know that this team that I stand by, that I play for, that I support, supports me too. You had multiple players in your organization who have been who are people of color, and I've played for you. So for me, it's disheartening. It's a number of things, and I don't want to go into depth, but for me, if you have a pride night, if you designate your uniforms, your BP tops, you know what I mean, doing stuff on Instagram about pride night, why can't you put out one statement? Why can't you allow the people to know that you stand with us through this time of, you know, this time of struggle, this time of heartbreak? So from my experience, like I feel like unheard in on the team that I feel like I've supported. And so that a firsthand story happened this morning. I feel like there were other agendas, and that was insinuated in some of the dialogue. But you know, a simple statement, just, you know, to let your players know that you stand by them. You know, our percentages, and you look at college percentages, the Black softball players, we make up less than 10% of the game. So, you know, more times than not, you're going to have 2 or less softball players on each team, if that. And that's growing up in Florida. You had your token, you know, your black slapper. And I know Kiki, I know Jasmine, I know AJ, you can attest to that too. You have your token minority on your team. So Black players don't make up the game. But I want to know that you stand by me because I've stood by you. So for me to ask for a statement, I feel like
it feels like it's so little. It's
the least they could do. It's absolute least.
It's bigger. It's the bigger picture here is, if, you know, again, long haul. I want to know that if I continue to play for this organization, if I continue to be a part of something, that you are going to stand by me and my beliefs and my views, and you're going to make me feel a part, because that's all I've given to the team that I'm on. All of us, every team that we've ever been on, we've probably always been a minority, so we've always made sure that we could leave our mark wherever we land. And so that's the smallest thing, is just, hey, this is all I'm asking, that you support me and that you continue to support me. But when you get a no, it just makes you feel really little, really, really little, because it's like, dang, then I just don't mean that much to you, or my life doesn't mean that much to you, or the people beside me, the people who are watching. You have to understand it impacts more than just me. If you say no to the 10%.
Yeah,
I go ahead, Jazz.
No, you got it.
Well, I was just saying, like, when Kiki said, like, my life doesn't mean that much to me. You know what I just feel like, I mean, I'm going to go back and quote him, okay, again, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, okay? If we're not supporting Black rights, who's to say LGBTQ rights could be taken away? Who's to say women's rights can't get snatched away? Like, this isn't just a singular issue. And then you sit here and you, again, as I said before, I don't understand why it is radical to denounce racism. I don't understand why it is something that isn't an instinctive thing to do. Like, someone's being murdered based off the color of their skin. Why do you feel conflicted in saying, I don't think that is right? To me, it doesn't make any sense. But in reality, if we're thinking about change, if we're thinking about how to make a shift, I think we have to be vocal. I mean, in reality, right, they tried to shut down Colin Kaepernick and what he was doing. Right now, they wish they would have listened, to then there wouldn't be people out in the streets. Then there wouldn't be people doing things. Now you see cops kneeling, right? Now it's welcome, because the alternative, right? The alternative is demanding that you give us these rights rather than asking kindly. And so I think that in order for the change where we're asking these teams, right, that we go to war for every single day, that we're on the field for every single day, literally just asking you to do the same off the field that I do for you on the field. And if that is truly that difficult for you, I think that it's time that we begin to demand and begin to use our voice. I mean, I think pressuring people and making people accountable for what it is, like literally drawing it out that way. Say, I go to war for you every single day, and you're telling me you cannot stand beside me when my life is at risk. Every single day I walk through the house, it is a blessing for me to come back home, and you cannot type up 3 sentences saying that you care about my life. You know what I mean? I just think putting things in perspective that forces people to have that thought process, I think is what is truly going to drive change. And the only way it's going to drive change, the only way LGBTQ had rights is because they went out and forced it. The only reason why women have rights right now is because LGBTQ forced it. The only reason Black people have a little bit of rights that we do have is because Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, all those people forced it. And so I think if we're trying to force the change in a culture in softball, we have to force it, because it's clear, due to what Lily just said, asking is not doing anything.
Yeah, and how we had to address the top as professional softball players, we also have to understand that when we were younger, all of us probably at least thought once, if I was white, I would have, gotten a little more money. If I was white, I wouldn't be like, if I wanted to play shortstop, no, but because I can play outfield because I'm Black, right? Because I'm fast and I'm so athletic, blah, blah, blah. All of us have thought this. All of us have thought this. So I think that is one of the biggest things in softball, is like addressing these dad coaches, is addressing these like grassroots programs that even in college for me, I came in as a shortstop, was supposed to be shortstop. I played 4 different positions. Like but if I feel as though if I was white, with just on paper, my resume, the credentials that I had, I would be the shortstop for at least my last 3 years. No question, no doubt about it. And I'm sure a lot of Black girls feel that way. A lot of Black women feel that way. And the fact that we do go to war, just as any of our other teammates should, on the field for them, but we have to do that much extra to be on the field. Like, just like women have to work twice as hard to get the same thing that men get, not even that. It's the same thing for us on the field. We have to be polite too, and we have to be funny, and we have to know the music, and we have to be the fastest on the team, the whatever, right? So we do all of this. It's not like we're competitive.
But we have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But not only do we can't just or like, even if we're first in conditioning, we're first in conditioning because we're Black. You know what I'm saying? Or just because we're naturally fast or naturally gifted. But it's just like a weird thing that we have to be all of these extra things just to get on the field, and it's not seen, and they can't even say something like, we appreciate you, or, Black Lives Matter, or something like that.
You have to be exceptional to match up to others' average.
Yeah, exactly. It's a crazy fact, and you see them smiling like this is because it's true.